Well, that was one example of the entertainment Hollywood turned out during the war. It was made in 1941, and in about 3/4 of an hour you can see another morale booster of a very different kind, made the following year, when James Cagney flies to glory in Captains of the Clouds. That's at 5-1. In a couple of minutes, Movie Museum, including W.C. Fields, fresh out of vaudeville and making his first film, Pool Sharks.
Black & Decker Quattro puts power in your hands. With hammer action, power to drive into any surface, almost as if it isn't there at all. With speed control and slow start for precision and accuracy. All the control you need. And all the power. With automatic shutoff and reverse action too. Quattro drills from Black & Decker. Tough tools for tough jobs.
Yeah, Andre, what's all this about you and these whisper bars? Can't leave them alone, can you?
No comment.
Hang about, you can't keep quiet about a whisper.
Movie Museum, presenting rare original footage from the first quarter century of motion pictures, selected from the archives of the Killiam Collection. In 1905, although The Great Train Robbery was already playing, most films were still single incidents. This is New York's East Side. A thief is ripping off the model bakery and lunchroom. Private citizens were then a little less apprehensive about getting involved. Under the 3rd Avenue elevated, a cop takes up the chase. Past a gas light on another cross street. As the dying officer shoots, an L train passes. And on the next corner, a barrel wagon. An invaluable historical record, down to the black cat which scampers out of the line of fire. A crowd begins to gather, just as it does today when cops chase robbers, either for the cameras or for real. Into a vacant basement. Although French cinema at this still turn-of-the-century stage was more enterprising than the American in comedy and magical effects, in melodrama and chase, films like this were extremely advanced and set the pattern for the thousands of crime-based pursuit and action pictures to be made throughout the rest of the century. The shaky painted set is the only less than convincing ingredient in the film. The paddy wagon is, of course, very real. The whole film was done with official cooperation, just as later many a crime series would be produced with the help of big city police departments or with the FBI. A desperate encounter between burglar and police was a true original, and the 1905 onlookers seemed to have sensed they were witnessing film history in the making. W.C. Fields' first film was made, curiously enough, by the French company Gaumont, working in New York, while Fields himself was working in New York in the Ziegfeld Follies. The movies, then desperately trying to gain prestige, had started to pillage the stage for big names who would condescend to make movies. Mack Sennett had conditioned movie audiences to violent slapstick exchanges, and in his first picture, Fields Goes Along. But we'll see the beginnings of the more controlled, steadily building kind of aggression that would mark his later work. The plot, what little there is the rivalry of Fields and his opponent for the hand of the heroine. And the weapons will be the entire Fields arsenal. He was 35 already, and the habits of the Fields that millions would find habit-forming had already themselves been formed. Chair pulling? Naturally. In fact, as we see most of the now familiar Fields mannerisms at their filmic beginning, all we'll have to supply ourselves are the oaths, curses, and snide insults, of which audiences would be deprived for another 15 years. And, by the way, Fields would be one of the very few silent comedians whose stuff would be strengthened, not weakened, by presentation in sound. Laurel and Hardy were really the only other major ones. Here, one might think one was watching a Three Stooges comedy of 30 or 40 years later. It is suggested that the two rivals repair to the pool room to settle their differences. The toss. No, we'll put hands on a stick. Later on, Bill rarely gave out with the big, broad smile that he gives us here. The French expertise with stop-motion camera trickery could enlarge Bill's considerable natural skill at billiards, well established in his vaudeville act. But, of course, the camera can trick up the rivals' shots, too. Another round. Just the slightest taste of juggling, which of course had been the heart of Bill's stage act. Again, it's the camera's victory more than Bill's, but we get another of those rare big smiles. The matchmaker looks incredibly like D.W. Griffith, but the only professional association the comedy and directorial geniuses, respectively, were to have would be 10 years later when Griffith directed Fields as the carnival barker Eustace McGargle in Sally of the Sawdust. Bill takes his rival out of the barrel, but as we said, the Fields' habits were already formed. He was never to give quarter to an opponent or be gallant or charitable.
Well, at 10:20 tonight on BBC One, Omnibus opens a new series with a documentary musical celebrating the centenary of Irving Berlin. The Voice of the City weaves the story of his early career and his 20 years on Tin Pan Alley, around 50 great songs from the ragtime years. Here on 2 in 15 minutes, it's the final touches for the homestead at number 50 as the team set about restoring the dining room chairs and checking out the central heating budget in On the House. Before that, we've some cartoon adventures with a Tex Avery double bill.